All right, so the mushroom cloud that you're seeing behind me here is foreshadowing. This is World War III. This is what it's going to look like. This detonation happened just a few hours ago in the western part of Ukraine. This is an ammunition depot that was taken out possibly by a Shahed drone by the Russians, maybe a Caliber, maybe a Kinzhal. I don't really know. Regardless, it's a big explosion and it's foreshadowing, I do believe. I think we're going to see this, but non-conventional, the way things are going, because according to some sources, they're speculating that the Ukrainians might actually try to invade along the eastern Russian front. Okay, we're talking about Bryansk, Belgorod, Kursk. We're talking about a replay of World War II all over again. The Germans are going to be sending $3 billion worth of weapons, an additional $3 billion. Okay, we have F-22 Raptors going to the Baltic states, who've completely altered their strategy from last year. Last year they had a strategy that if the Russians invaded, they would kind of just let them invade and then NATO would come to the rescue afterwards. Now they're forming this defensive line. You got troops doing exercises along the Suwalki Gap, 3,000 NATO troops currently training along the Suwalki Gap that connects Belarus to Kaliningrad. You got HIMARS on the Kaliningrad border. You have Poland, who's doing a massive military buildup just in general. You have them renaming the Russian exclave of Kaliningrad in a Polish name, of course, foreshadowing perhaps. Finland just became a part of NATO. That border is starting to become heavily militarized. They're putting in fencing and the whole 9 yards. You have Moscow, who of course is continuously rolling out more aerial defense systems. They even have a drone task force designated for resisting drones now with electromagnetic guns. And this is turning into this is World War III. If the Ukrainians' counteroffensive, which it appears as though it has actually begun, we're going to talk about dissension in the ranks on the Bakhmut front. We're going to talk about the incursions into Russian airspace today, taking out of a few Russian planes, 2 warplanes, 2 helicopters. Of a few Russian planes, 2 warplanes, 2 helicopters, which is fairly substantial for one day in a war like this. They don't know if that's friendly fire or if it was the Ukrainians. You have the Ukrainians using their long-range missiles now, going deeper into Russian territory in Luhansk, possibly even targeting places in the Russian Federation. And that means that this is getting very, very close. We're just one incident away. And I know I keep saying that, but you have to understand that it appears as though these levels of gradation, that the bar keeps getting moved in terms of the red lines. But eventually there's going to be that one time where we lose the game of Russian roulette. And what's likely going to happen is it might not be a nuclear demonstration first. It's likely going to be Russia taking out a spy plane, taking out a NATO base, taking out a UK asset, some training center, just to send a message, and then the ball is in our court. What we will likely do, if you believe David Petraeus, is we'll do an all-out attack on Russian forces in the eastern part of Ukraine that they currently occupy, and that's when it's on. Okay, so this is foreshadowing. This only ends one way, okay? Because Putin has an arrest warrant out from the International Criminal Court, not recognized by the United States. It doesn't matter. It's recognized by enough countries around the world that it's very likely that in his lifetime he's never going to be able to safely go anywhere outside his borders again, unless it's to one of his closely allied states. Okay, so that means that this either ends with Putin gone, meaning that his place will be taken by somebody who is far more aggressive, and almost everyone, it seems, that's surrounding this guy is calling on him to be more aggressive in his approach. Now, the reason why the Russians are doing what they're doing, according to some military strategists, is they are putting on a defensive front because they don't have to expend as much manpower. They're inviting the Ukrainians to attack their defensive lines because typically in war, there's a 3-to-1 advantage for the defenders, meaning that If you have an army of 1,000 and you want to do an offensive, you know, if the other guy has about 350 troops, they're at parity because, of course, you lose more when you're doing an offensive. Okay, so the idea is that if the Russians can invite the Ukrainians to do an offensive, that the attritional rate for them is going to be much higher because the Ukrainians are relying pretty much solely right now on Western aid. There's the theory that they can burn out and exhaust the Ukrainian military, and then once that's done, the Russians can go do their offensive, take Odessa, possibly take Kiev, take right up to the part of the Western country that doesn't get annexed by Poland, and that's going to be the end of the game, basically. And they're going to sustain fewer losses as a result of that. That's one theory of how this is going to play out. Now,